Have you ever thought about career in law? What kind of law is out there and what kind of law different lawyers practice? Today I have a special guest, Andrew, who is an injury lawyer in Seattle area. Andrew has more than 10 years of experience in this field and is going to share his journey with us today. Thank you, Andrew, for coming today.
Hello, excited to be here.
Yeah. Let's start with your years, right? In college or maybe even in high school or even earlier. When um, did you realize that you want to pursue law?
It was actually after college. I
Mhm.
took the MCAT, which is the medical school entry exam, and the LSAT, which is the law school entry exam. And I told myself whichever one I do better in, I would just go to that school.
Mhm.
And in Washington State, UW, the University of Washington, actually has a really good law school and a really cool, good med school. And so my med school or my MCAT results were not good enough to get me into the UW Medical School, and I got a scholarship for law school, so I decided to go to law school.
Okay. Yeah. And right now you said you are in injury lawyer, right? So it's kind of a blend of medical field, yes, because it's injuries, but
A
also
little
it's
bit,
law. So you kind of did blend two fields.
a little bit. I mean, I always wanted to help people, and I always thought growing up that medicine was the best way to help people. And
Mhm.
then I realized as I got older that there were a lot of different ways to help people, and I think
Yeah.
injury law is just one of those ways that you can help hurt people.
hmm what about your college years? You said you were thinking about going to law after college, but how did college prepare you for the law school after that?
Sure. So law school actually does not require any specific degree. A lot of people that go into law school have poli science or English degrees are pretty typical. I actually had I started with a biology degree and ended with a business degree.
hmm
So I did take a lot of biology classes, a lot of business classes, and I do think they all sort of helped a little bit. But as a whole, I think to be a lawyer or to go to law school, really you just need any degree. And definitely English classes helped a lot. But my college experience, at least, did not help me a whole lot getting into law school.
hmm Okay, and let's focus on the law school right now. If you want to become a lawyer, in at least in the United States, you have to go to the law school, right?
There
There's
are other ways,
Mhm.
actually. I am not as familiar with them, but I understand that there's ways to, in certain states, there are ways to essentially be mentored and learn under a more experienced attorney for several years. Most definitely, the fastest way to become a lawyer is to go to law school.
Mhm. Let's focus on the law school right
Sure.
on your law school years. How long was it, and can you tell me how difficult it was for you and all of this, you know?
Sure. So law school was 3 years approximately.
Mhm.
I did take summer classes, so I finished in 2.5. Uh, I chose to, I got a scholarship to go to law school, so I went to law school outside of the area. And a lot of times the summers in law school give you good internship opportunities locally to check out different areas of law, work for different people. But because I went to law school far away in New Jersey, I did not get those same opportunities. And I always knew I wanted to come back here to Seattle.
Mhm.
And so I instead chose to finish as quickly as possible and return.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of how difficult it was or certain things, I mean, law school really, a lot of it has to do with you don't learn. I mean, people sometimes think, well, you learn the laws, right? But laws in every state and even in federal versus state jurisdictions, they all change. So most law schools, all the good ones at least, they tend not to focus on the specific laws of the area, but rather how to legally assess things, how to
Mhm.
analyze things appropriately under whatever set of laws you're given.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, theoretically in law school, you could be given a fake set of laws and you should still be able to do real legal analysis based on whatever random laws they give you.
Mhm.
Um, just a couple stories of my favorite experiences in law school, which I don't think are atypical. But I had an exam once that basically you are given 24 hours to answer four questions or something. And I think my average, me and my classmates typically scheduled our time where there were essay questions. We wrote about 8 hours, slept for about 8 hours, and then edited our original 8 hours for another 8 hours. So we've put 16 hours within a 24-hour period for that one exam. My favorite exam, actually, it had a 100-point max. There was a section, 10 questions worth 2 points each, true and false. If you got it right, they're worth 2 points each. But if you got it wrong, it's a negative 3 point penalty. So essentially, you're punished for answering questions wrong.
Wrong.
So there's a lot of things like this where you just have to use logic more than you might think. It's good if you like processing information and doing things a little bit more off the cuff or a little bit more spontaneously. Not very nice if you prefer things to be more scripted.
Yeah, that's interesting take. Yeah, so I didn't know about that, about this. When
It could
just
have just been my
yeah,
teachings. I
they
don't
just
know.
learn. Yeah, they did teach the logic. Yeah, so you can apply that to different types of law or like the places. And so generally, was it difficult for you, the law school? Was it like a grueling years of your career, beginning of your career, or was it a pretty easy journey for you?
No, I mean, I think it is difficult. I mean, I had a fairly good grip on language, logic, things like that. I did enjoy, so it was probably easier for me than many others.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of writing. I underestimated how much writing, how much um, and you also you have to be really good at following instructions. And for me, I think it was humbling because I thought that as long as you were right, that you would be acknowledged because I thought the law was more black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that a lot of it you just have to do what you're told, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually not terrible preparation for the actual legal field because there are often times where I think certain rules are stupid, but they are still rules. You
Mm-hmm.
still have to follow them. And I think that's a good lesson to learn in law school as well as life. You don't always get
Mm-hmm.
to control your destiny to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent.
Yeah. What else law school taught you? Any other insights? Even
I
though it
mean,
was quite some time ago.
no, law school it really just teaches you how to think more than analyze. It teaches you how to analyze things. Personally, like for example, I had a professor I disagreed with, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, well, it's law school, so eventually logic will win.
Mm-hmm.
But she gave me a C- in her class because I
Mm-hmm.
wrote an essay that she didn't like,
Mm-hmm.
which I still to this day think was the actual accurate answer. But she used to practice law, and she basically, based on her experience, thought one answer was correct. But
Mm-hmm.
turns out the law has changed, and long story short, I still think the essay was the correct answer. The only way to
Yeah.
win the
Mm-hmm.
question she gave me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I never could convince a teacher that I was right, and I took a C- in that class. And it
Mm-hmm.
taught me that, sometimes things are not fair and you
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to work with it. Um, which I don't know what I would do if I went back. Would I cave in and just do what I was told? Would I try to stand up for myself again? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely learned that sometimes things aren't fair like that.
Gotcha. What about networking? Because a lot of people say law school benefit is the networking and part. What's your take on this?
No, I very much agree. If you
Mm-hmm.
are going to practice law in the area that you're going to school, you should definitely network. I had the opposite
Mm-hmm.
experience since I did not want to practice law in the area that I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make the same efforts to network.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard stories where in the past it used to be people really tried to recruit lawyers from different schools, from faraway school. There were just more efforts. But I think firms now there's a lot of law school graduates, and not all of them can
Mm-hmm.
find jobs, and so they don't try as hard to recruit. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to develop those connections in law school if you can. And if you can't, it's very important to try to do different volunteering opportunities, I think, to at
Mhm.
least show a potential employer that you have certain skills that maybe other people don't have. One thing I think that I did well in New Jersey is they had a program where they allowed law school students. So, as a student, as a law school student, you're not allowed to practice law in any way. You can't give legal advice. You can't have
Mhm.
clients. You can't even pretend to have clients uh,
Mhm.
because you're just you have no license to practice law.
Mhm.
But what the New Jersey uh, court system did is they allowed us to serve as mediators. So we wouldn't represent anybody, but two people would essentially walk into a conference room with us and with me specifically individually, and I would try to help them come to an agreement based on whatever disagreement they were having. Often it was like landlord tenant disputes or small claims, so it was less than $5,000 in claims. But it was really good practice to try to come to an agreement and help people come to an agreement
Mhm.
without actually practicing law.
Mhm.
And so that was, I think, a good benefit program that I did that they had there.
Mhm.
I know a lot of lawyers, once you do get your license, once you finish law school, you pass the bar exam and you do get
Mhm.
your license, there are also volunteer opportunities to work on. There are probably more volunteer opportunities as a actual lawyer since you have a license than as a law school student. But all of these volunteer opportunities, I think, are good ways to show a potential employer that you know more than
Yeah.
somebody who just graduated law school.
Yeah, you know more than the just core curriculum of the law school.
Right. And passing the bar
Mhm.
exam, honestly, is
Mhm.
it is something. I mean, they give you a license, but a lot of people who are brand new lawyers, they pass the bar exam, they still don't know a lot.
Mhm.
You got to be able to show that you're able to do legal analysis and you're yeah, passing the bar
Mhm.
exam. I'm not saying it's easy. There are many people who
Yeah.
struggle a lot with that,
Mhm.
but in terms of getting a job, I don't think it's enough.
I mean, yeah, just the beginning of the journey, yeah.
Right, right.
As a
And
lawyer.
so that's why the internships, the volunteer opportunities, they really help, and networking generally really helps you find that first job.
Mm-hmm. Let's transition to different types of law.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the field of law. You definitely know much more about that. Can you tell me what are the most popular or more the types of law that are in demand right now?
I think actually, I mean, a lot of fields of law are when you mean in demand, I mean, lawyers work in almost every part of society.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you would probably want to do if you're really curious is consult who's retiring, like what types of lawyers are retiring, because those fields will probably be more in demand. And I think with AI, a lot of people keep talking about how it's going to replace lawyer jobs, and it probably
Mm-hmm.
has replaced some low level, like inexperienced lawyer job. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, what would happen is people would graduate law school and they would spend a lot of time just reviewing documents, uh, doing work that doesn't require a lot of legal analysis, just to, I mean, big corporations, big law firms, it would be to bill hours, and there's a whole system how it used to work. But with AI, what happens is a lot of those easy jobs get replaced, or you don't need as many of lawyers doing that same level of just reviewing document work. And so it's interesting how those sorts of things are changing. I think being able to utilize AI is definitely a good skill to have, and I think all the legal fields require it. But in terms of different legal fields, they're always needing, public defenders, criminal defense attorneys. They're always needing prosecutors, although there tend to be plenty of people that want to be prosecutors, so it's very competitive because lots of people, want to do good in
Mm-hmm.
the world and, go after bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Traffic law, I mean, with traffic cameras these days and speed traps and things, I'm sure that's always going to be in demand. Um, what I do, personal injury, there's always room for good lawyers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Workman's comp. I think anytime you have any people involved, um, it's good to have, there's going to be conflicts that arise that you need legal solutions for.
Mm-hmm. And how did you end up in like injury law? Like what led you to this?
Yeah, so I enjoyed, like I said before, I wanted to be a doctor and help
Mhm.
people. And, I don't, I think one of the biggest reasons, like I was able to see, surgeries and things, and it made me realize I didn't really want to deal with like
Mhm.
blood and guts and,
Mhm.
hurting people I want to help hurting people, but just not necessarily with like, medications or surgeries, right?
Mhm.
Um, and medical school is tough and training afterwards is tough. And I didn't think I'd have the stomach or the heart to get through
Mhm.
all that.
Mhm.
And so I think it was kind of almost when I did look into other jobs and I was able to get wasn't really an internship. It was after I got my bar exam. My first job was in a personal injury firm. And then when I was able to see what personal injury law was all about, it was about helping people, helping hurt people recover. I liked it enough to stay in it. I mean,
Mhm.
there are difficulties, there are struggles as well, but the idea of helping people get compensation for, having to suffer through things that they don't have to suffer through. Um,
Mhm.
it really appeals to me because, you hear stories of like, well, I got hurt doing this, and usually the response is like, oh, that's too bad. I'm so sorry. But I feel like in the field of personal injury, at least in certain circumstances, we're able to do more than that. We're able to, actually get people compensation, and we don't just say, well, man, I'm sorry, I wish there was something we could do about it. Like we
Mhm.
actually do something about it,
Mhm.
which is one thing I
It's
like.
rewarding.
Yeah, no, I mean, my favorite part is giving checks to clients, right? Like, hey, I know you had to suffer through, 2 years, 5 years, the rest of your life of whatever this is. And I know this doesn't, I know if most people, if they could choose, they would choose not to be injured.
Mhm. Yeah.
But, the American system, the next best thing we could do is give people money. And
Mhm.
so I don't mind to be part of that process. It's
Mhm.
rewarding in that
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm. So, the way you discovered injury law was through getting an internship there, and
Yeah,
then
so
you.
I started,
Mhm.
yeah, no, I started working at a personal injury firm, essentially doing things that I described earlier, just reviewing documents and writing summaries and things like that. And, I liked it enough to stick around and learn more about it and eventually have 10 years of experience doing it. So,
Yeah, so internship is a great way to test something out and understand if you like it, and then stick to it if you like
yeah,
it enough.
yeah, most definitely. I mean, I was lucky in that I didn't hate the first 2 or 3 or 5 areas of law that I tried to do.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely a lot of people they do one area of law for a while and they burn out and they try a different area
Mm.
of law for a while and burn out until they find something that they either don't mind or enjoy.
Hmm. Let's focus on your present life.
Sure.
And what does a typical day look like for you?
So for a personal injury lawyer, a typical day, I mean, actually for most lawyers, a typical day is probably going to be a lot of talking to clients, finding if clients are having issues, trying to resolve those issues. Another big part of the day is going to be talking with whoever the other side is.
Mhm.
If you're a prosecutor, it's going to be a criminal defense attorney. If you're a criminal defense attorney, it'll probably be the prosecution. For me, as a personal injury attorney, oftentimes I'm working with lawyers that work for insurance companies,
Mhm.
and vice versa, right? They're talking to personal injury lawyers, but really it's with every legal struggle, there are usually two or more sides, and a lot
Mhm.
of your days spent, trying to work with them, and whether it's trying to come to a resolution or if you're trying to prepare for trial, there's a lot of things that judges require people to agree on. And so oftentimes it's just going back and forth and saying, what are we agreeing to? Because I mean, you might think lawyers fight about everything, but we really don't. We agree about
Mhm.
90% of what happened. Usually it's the
Uh-huh.
10% that matters, right? Like
Mhm.
nobody's going to argue if it was a sunny day. I mean, sometimes it matters, but it was a Tuesday on such and such date. There's a lot of facts that most
Mhm.
people can agree on. Um, but you never know. And so that's why you got to go and confirm these things. And then not every day, but if you're a trial lawyer, if you do trial work, essentially you're dedicating, whenever a trial is coming, you're dedicating, a week or two of your life to the trial, and then probably half a day of every day, 2 weeks before the trial, writing, different motions and things. So uh, trials are almost like marathons. You actually do,
Mhm.
there's a lot of preparation that goes into them, but it doesn't happen like every day or every week. And so, but also I'm describing a personal injury lawyer. As I understand it, like criminal defense attorneys or especially public defenders or prosecution, they the life of a case is much shorter for them. So they may be in trial, more than half the time. I'm not sure exactly what, it's very different what they do and how they do it. So I guess it varies. But as a personal injury lawyer, it's a lot of writing, a lot of talking to people, and a lot of just trying to, help people recover for
Mhm.
injuries. So,
So it's by talking to people, you mean email communication or meetings of like companies?
everything in person, meetings,
Mhm.
phone calls, emails.
Mhm.
What is interesting to me is oftentimes we'll go out and visit wherever, different things happened,
Mhm.
to see if it makes sense or understand things or um, sometimes it's meeting with experts and going to doctor's appointments with clients to
Mhm.
see what the issues are and so it does involve traveling, which again, I like traveling, I like driving,
Mhm.
um, but it's a lot less time in the office than I thought it would be, and a lot more time spent with people, even if it's not in a courtroom for trial, even before the trial. I think a good attorney will spend more time with people outside of the office.
Oh, that's interesting.
Um, Although some attorneys prefer all the meetings happen in the office, it's just, typically if you're going to meet with a doctor in person,
Yeah.
you're paying for that doctor to show up at your office, right? So you're paying for
Mhm.
travel time. And most attorneys I know would rather drive to a doctor's office rather than make the doctor come to them. So
Mm. Got
little
it.
things like that, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of problems do you enjoy solving the most?
Um, I mean, that's a tricky question because like the biggest money cases are people with really bad injuries, really,
Mm-hmm.
like permanent injuries where like no amount of money in the world can compensate. So you just do the
Mm-hmm.
best you can. Um, but if you're gonna live, if you're a young guy, let's say you're 30 years old and you can't use your right hand anymore, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't pick up a hammer or a glass of water because it doesn't work. Like that has a lot of value, right? I mean, that's gonna be hard. That's a life forever changed.
Mm-hmm.
And those will bring in a lot of money. Like every lawyer should be able to get a lot of money for that kind of case. Um, and I like helping those kinds of people, but it's not my favorite kind of case because at the end of the day, someone's still permanently injured, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think I like cases. I enjoy working on cases where people have gotten hurt, they've more or less fully recovered, and
Mm-hmm.
they were, let's say for a year or two, they just couldn't do a lot of things they used to do, right? Um, I like those cases specifically because people have not been permanently injured. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're able to fully recover and you're trying to evaluate what was lost during a specific time period. I think those cases are, I mean, they're not as much money. Big permanent injury cases are definitely worth more money, but I guess I like happy endings, a little bit more happier endings where people don't walk away permanently injured.
Yeah.
Um,
What
so I
kind of
mean,
yeah, what kind of injury is the most like
I
popular?
mean,
I don't know.
no, I mean, car accidents often is, neck, back pain,
Mm-hmm.
neck, upper back, lower back pain, shoulders. Oftentimes, like drivers, when you're driving, like when your hands on the steering wheel and you get into a collision, your shoulders are often affected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you see the most of.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on the injuries. If you slip and fall on some ice, it's going to usually be ankle. Necks
Yeah.
usually always involve some level of neck pain.
What
Sometimes,
about hiking or like going traveling? Do you also
yeah.
work with that?
not as many claims come out of hiking or traveling,
Mm-hmm.
just because somebody has to be responsible. And when it comes to hiking,
Mm-hmm.
usually the federal government, whoever owns that piece of land that's being hiked on, there are laws that hold them not responsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or usually it's because of some action the person took. Like if you go swimming in an area that says no swimming, generally it's going to be your fault if you swim off a waterfall, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so usually it's not cases like that. Usually it involves normal everyday, like, walking on a sidewalk or driving a car,
Mm-hmm.
or inside of a store, even, where something is there that shouldn't be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and people get hurt because of it.
Okay, that's why you sign the waiver, right? When you go to the bouldering place or
Yeah, and
travel.
generally, I mean, those are interesting, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
generally what you're waiving is essentially, if you get hurt at a bouldering gym
Mm-hmm.
or doing normal bouldering things, then, they're probably not going to be liable. The waiver will probably work, right? And again, this isn't legal advice. People
Mm-hmm.
with their own situation should definitely consult with somebody, right? But, if the bouldering gym, let's say the bouldering gym were too cheap to put out protection mats and they, just left bare concrete, right? Well, then,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody
Yeah.
gets a concussion, right? That's probably the bouldering gym's fault for not providing some kind of safety equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there may be a case there. The waivers don't always apply for
Mm-hmm.
every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, you sign the waiver, let's say you go skiing and, you fall skiing and you break a leg. Well, you probably can't sue for
Mm-hmm.
that. But if a chairlift breaks, then that's probably a case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends. The waivers don't always cover the people that you're,
Got it.
yeah,
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. Let's
sure.
focus on the skills. I wanted to ask you some questions about the most important skills for this kind of job. What kind of advice do you have for people who are thinking about entering the field of law?
Yeah.
And finally, top three things that you enjoy and love about the field, about law, and top three things that you don't really enjoy. So let's start with skills.
Um, the question again was skills you need or that
Yeah,
help you.
that would be beneficial for you if you want to be competitive, right? Because you said there's a lot of competition right now going on. How to stand out and how to make sure you have a good
Yeah,
win.
I think one of the very critical skills is how to use AI.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more nuanced than just being able to ask questions of some chatbot, right? I have literally been preparing a case for a judge, writing arguments where I had another lawyer send me a document that said, "Hey, check out these cases; they help you out." And I looked at the cases and I had to research for quite a while, only to discover they weren't real cases. Like they were essentially AI hallucinations. And so basically, I went back to this person that I respected very much and I said, "Hey, did you even read what you sent me?" And like, "No, I just asked a chatbot." And I was like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. You just wasted half an hour of my time and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't helpful." Right. So basically, you being able to use AI, but also to the level of where you are able to recognize and go down and quickly uh, assess, hey, is this real? Is this not? How can I use this? Or does it not matter, right? In law school and things, there have always been summaries that are done by people
Mm-hmm.
before AI was even a thing. And a lot of times those summaries done by people were wrong too, right? It was very smart people, probably lawyers or law students or people with after graduating law school and before getting a bar license, they were writing these summaries. And the summaries are not the law, right? The law is whatever the judge said is the law. And so I think AI is actually the new version of that, where they'll write you summaries, but if you rely on those summaries, then it's at your own risk, and a judge will essentially slap you and fine you for not critically analyzing your own cases and letting AI do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think being able to utilize AI, what it can, and the limits of AI, is definitely a good skill to have. Another good skill to have is good grip on writing. Legal
Mhm.
writing or persuasive writing is very different than, I mean, they teach you how to do it in law school, but appreciating writing, a good vocabulary, being able to understand. There's a lot of games out there too right now, like phone games for logic, right? Understanding logic problems.
Mhm.
That's something new that a lot of people don't do before starting, let's say, preparing for the LSAT. But there's a lot, again, there's a lot of games now for your phone that where you could essentially problem solve, logic solve, like if A is next to B and B is next to C and D is the grandson of A, there's like those kinds of logic problems where you're able to assess, different where things should fit in the logic pattern. I think that's another good skill to have.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess the last one I could mention is being able to talk to people, relate to people. When I'm doing a jury trial, it's you have very little time where you want the jury to listen to you. These are 12 strangers you've never met before.
Mhm.
And if they instantly think they don't want to trust you, right? If they I mean, some people give off different auras, right?
Mhm.
Some people, you look at them and I try not to judge people, but I think everybody, we look at some people and we're like, oh, I think, this person's trustworthy, or
Mhm.
oh, I don't, there's a story, I don't know if it's true, but they say prosecutor offices tended to look for tall men to hire as prosecutors
Mhm.
because there's this theory that, well, if you're a tall dude, then people will believe you more. You are
Mhm.
inherently more trustworthy. I don't think it's true, but
Mhm.
that's something people would actually do because they found it helpful for them, right? So
Mhm.
I don't think it has to do with height. I don't think it has to do with gender. I don't think it has to do with ethnicity, even, but a certain level of, I think, genuineness, right? If you're able to give this sense like, hey, I care about what you have to say, I care about you, I care about people, I think that's
Mhm.
also a very beneficial thing to have because
Mhm.
I think even a phone call that comes through, whether or not you care about people or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And if you
true.
don't care about people, you probably shouldn't be practicing. Or if you do practice law, you could always work for corporations. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I had a question about the writing in AI. Is it very easy to differentiate between AI writing and actual person writing for you?
So funny thing is, back when I first discovered ChatGPT, I asked my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, so I asked ChatGPT write a Valentine's whatever for my wife, and I gave it a long prompt. And I
Mm-hmm.
showed my wife, and I was like, "Hey, how does this sound? It's obviously fake, right?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "No, that sounds exactly like how you write." I'm like, "Oh, well, I
Oh.
guess I write well then, right?" Like, I don't think it's easy to differentiate
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to how it's written. It's the facts in it that you have to, like, when you start making, if I find that AI will often, the analysis is a little lacking. The best way I've seen it put is AI will have all the right information. That's what it's good at. But the knowledge or wisdom in applying the information together, did A cause B, like those logic things, right? Like correlation is not causation is another thing that I often say and hear, where, oftentimes AI will put two and two together, but it may not be true, but it's because they don't know any better, really. And I think that's where you're able to determine, is this AI or is this a human analyzing this? It's not in the writing, but it's in the analysis. I think you can tell the difference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty, yeah, interesting. I can't differentiate. I'm not like proficient enough in law to see the difference.
Yeah. No,
But I guess the professional lawyers are.
yeah.
They can. Okay, we have like 3 minutes left. I'm curious about any sort of, you have a lot of years of experience, right? More than 10. Any advice or any insight that you want to share with people who are interested in entering the field of law?
Right. Let's see. If you're interested in entering the field of law,
Mm,
it might be because someone said, well, you argue good, so you should be a lawyer, or you talk a lot, so you should be a
mhm,
lawyer. But really, I think the skill you should have is clear communication, clear logical communication. If you tell great stories, but they don't always make sense, or you're kind of making up a lot of it, then you probably should not go into law. You could do creative writing, you could be a novelist, something else,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
think law, it's more dependent on the facts, more dependent upon remembering the facts and applying whatever rule to them. Um, yeah, a lot of analysis. I think if you enjoy asking like, well, why is that, right? Like I actually, even when I was much younger, I would, I grew up in a church and I'd hear, well, this is what the church
Mhm.
teaches. And I would ask, well, why is that? And I, try to figure out, why people believe what they believe, right? I
Mhm.
think an interest in that sort of thing is actually much more beneficial for legal analysis than what people assume, like you're good at arguing or you're good at talking a lot, and that's why you should be a lawyer. I don't think that's
Got it.
the correlation is not necessarily there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question is top three things you enjoy and top three things you don't like about law.
I mean, top three things well, let's start with I don't like um, people who are not able to work together. A lot of times people aren't able to see from another
Mm-hmm.
person's perspective. And I think seeing from other people's perspectives is really important, especially in law. Like if a lawyer's like, well, I'll never lose, or you have a great case, really, they're probably wrong. There is a chance, however small, that things don't work out, right? So perspective is
Mm-hmm.
important. Um, and then, working with different people, whether it's other side or clients or whatever. It's nice to work with nice people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually the best thing I like about law is helping nice people.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What
getting,
about something you don't like? Like at least one thing
oh, I mean,
or
there's a
two.
lot of things I don't like working with mean
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. When sometimes you lose, even if you do everything right. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, but it's part of life. But it's a good lesson, I think, in life and in law.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing some of your insight about this profession. And I uh, hope you have a lot of successful clients in the future. And yeah, thank you for sharing your journey today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, absolutely.